My name's host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People. Lorenz Walker has suggested a fine topic here. Can you please restate what you were just telling me, Milkman?
I don't know.
You don't. Okay, I'll restate it. Basically, he was discussing the relationship between being good at something and being willing to persist at it. And the challenge being that if you don't feel like you're very successful at something, there's little impetus to persist. And especially if you feel like you can see your ceiling. Like, well, this is as good as I'm ever going to be at this, and it's not really top level good, then that might be discouraging for anybody as well. So, my thoughts on that are, being good at something is a very FE focused idea that both ENTP and INTP are a little obsessed about, I think. Uh, I think there's two ways around this. One is self deception, which is something that I've engaged in plenty of in my life to good effect. When I first started playing music and I had a band, it was called Puppy Bus, and we were pretty terrible. I have the old CDs we made back then, and I I find them mostly hard to listen to. Uh, but at the time, I was quite convinced that we were really good. I think I need to be less convinced of that now, in general, because I understand good a little differently. I understand good as providing some service to people primarily. That if your media is good enough to entertain somebody and have them provide them an enjoyable watching experience, that you've accomplished something very difficult to do. And to try to aspire to more than that is insane. I mean, I want to continue to improve in what I'm putting out there to make it more enjoyable for people to watch and more concise and more effective in its production and stuff like that. And it looks like we have a very special guest here again. Mr. Chad Crandall has arrived. I'm excited to hear if he has any topics he'd like to talk about. Perhaps he's here to point out the risks of talking about shit you don't really understand, as per my earlier Host Eric is Wrong video. I'm not sure. So, what we're talking about, Chad Crandall, I would suspect that you've got some excellent insight into this as well, is what INTP Milkman indicated is a difficulty, which is the need to feel as though one is accomplished in things before one can persist in a course of action that might lead to achievement or attainment of goals. Any thoughts on that?
Is there a TV you prefer me take?
Whatever you want.
There's no remotes or anything?
They're around somewhere.
They both work.
Yeah, everything works. Sorry about that. My ex-wife is here grabbing some stuff of Delilah's to take with her to her house and stuff like that. Anyway, any thoughts?
All right, so Eric, can you hear me?
I sure can.
All right,
Oh, now you cut out, of course.
those nights, you got to stay up.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting topic because it's a topic I've struggled with specifically as having some kind of area of competence before you feel like you can proceed with a particular thing. Is that what we're asking about here? To be
Yeah, well, I think he was saying more in terms of a motivational issue that if he sees that he's not really very good at something yet, and he would like to become good at it, that the distance between his realistic assessment of his own current level and his notion of what it is to be good at something provides too daunting a view in front of him. I'm speaking for you, Milkman. If you want to correct me on any of this, please do.
Yeah, no, that was more general. I was thinking uh, just about how other people. How do I voice this? So, like Trenton was saying, the SE Dom is probably gonna get or be have a more enjoyable and more fulfilling time doing sports and whatnot, and then so
So
can't speak right now.
I mean, is the point of it that those people have a higher ceiling in those things, and so, or they experience more immediate success, or a combination of both?
Yeah. It's about their development. So if they're having an enjoyable time out of it, and that strengthens maybe their resolve for their development and for them to continue growing in that skill.
Okay, thoughts on that process, Chad?
Well, I think that the biggest issue that I hear with this particular statement is that yeah, they're developing a specific skill, but what are we really trying to accomplish here? Are we trying to get better at that particular skill, or are we actually trying to build who we are, say personal development, become a better overall person to be able to adapt to certain circumstances or situations versus being specialized in one particular area?
Well, I mean, I think that even if you don't want to be specialized in one particular area, there are areas that are more disciplinary, which is to say they've got kind of no top. You just can continue to get better, but you never really achieve mastery. Or there are closed system things which you can master. And so I think there's a distinction to be made between the two things. And the open system things, there's more interpretive flexibility about what's good. So if you're trying to be good at playing music, just because you're a beginner and you're playing some simple song doesn't mean it's not good.
Right. So I guess I'm failing to see what the underlying thing is like in regards to what he's say trying to improve, or a particular skill, or what skill it is even, to be able to address that question appropriately.
Okay, well, I can give you an example from my own life where I think I experienced something similar to what he's talking about, which is when I was younger and I was in a band, I sort of had to deceive myself that we were really good, or maybe I just believed we were really good, or whatever. And before I could actually attain outcomes of sticking with something, I had to already believe it had some quality to it, right? Fucking dogs, oh my god. So in that regard, I think that attainment of goals is predicated somewhat. It's kind of like credit in that regard, that you feel the impetus to do things to the extent that you've already had success in doing those things, and that can be. Lacey, shut up, please. Candace, can you quiet the dogs, please? Can you quiet the dogs, please?
Okay, I'm trying, but...
Okay, thank you. We've got a little bit of a moving thing going on here right now, which is causing some disruption. I apologize for the barking. At any rate,
Makes it stop.
the point is simply that there's an aspirational quality that requires you to have already achieved psychologically for some types, I think, more than others. I think it's worse for the NTPs. Chad, if you can comment on that, I'm going to mute myself so that we get less of this horrific noise in the background.
Okay, so naturally I'm not an NTP, so I'm not going to be able to really contribute from a perspective of an NTP. I do think that the reinforcement of a particular skill is necessary, especially if you're starting out something new. You kind of want to have a feeling of accomplishment, or as if you're moving forward, not backward. Let me get a particular example that I can relate to that I've used even in my time. Is I've never really been good with, say, lyrics in music. I can't remember them for the life of me. I don't know if this is my seventh function stunting me, but I cannot remember lyrics for the life of me. Yet I still have a good memory. So I've tried to do like different things to be able to determine like, okay, what is going on here, and I never had success with it. To this day, I still struggle with lyrics. I never really pursued it after I didn't have any success in chasing that particular goal, because again, there was no accomplishment at all. So I didn't feel like I was moving forward. And I don't know if that was because I'm a TJ and everything has to be moving forward, but it sounds like you guys are having the same issue from an NTP standpoint, that there has to be some kind of validation to be able to say, okay, this justifies the work that I'm putting into this to get the same result.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the experience, that we need some sort of validation. And I think that what kind of validation or where you get validated might be contingent upon your type. So I would imagine that an INFP probably feels the need for less validation about their own workings than, say, an ENTP, because they're so much more in tune with how they themselves feel about it. Does that seem plausible to you?
Yeah, I think that's going to be definitely what relates to that particular type difference. Is like, for me, the conclusion is the validity doesn't come from actually the performance of the skill itself, but if it moves toward a conclusion or a goal that I've set.
I see.
So it's not like, I memorized 300 words, now I memorize 500 words. It's more of, can I successfully remember this song or not? It's the goal that's more important versus, like, say, the actual quality of the skill. For me, again, being an ENTJ, it's not about the mastery, it's about the completion.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts on this issue of motivation and attainment of being good at something, or the feeling of that in the short run? Hami, you got any thoughts from the INTJ perspective?
All Hami said was same. So I guess he related to something I said or something you said earlier.
Yeah, well, those introverts are not necessarily the most talkative of all types. So what you said, Chad, that's what Hami says. I think Hami relates naturally would be much more likely to relate to what you have to say about that, because he is also, of course, an NTJ, and you guys have a lot of things in common. JC here is an ESFP, and I wonder if we can get her thoughts on this topic. And Chad and I and Lorenz Walker, and through the chat there, Hami and I have been discussing the issue of attaining goals and feeling like you're already good at it. Now, JC, I'm imagining you have supreme confidence in your own ability level at your specialty. Would that be misstating things?
Yeah, I'm confident in things that I'm sure of and things that I put time into.
So you probably don't walk around with a lot of self-doubt about your music, right? Or about yourself musically? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But you still feel as though you're not necessarily taking all the maybe TE indicated steps forward towards a career that you would envision? Because we're talking about how these things integrate with motivation to act.
Like, how am I motivated to, accomplish goals?
Right. Well, Lorenz Walker indicated something along the lines of, the more you feel like you're experiencing success in something, the more likely you are to repeat that action and to persist in a course. And some courses, though, have a steeper learning curve than others, right? So some courses of action, you experience a lot of difficulty at first, and then eventually you get past some hump and it becomes a lot easier. Other courses of action have different kind of curves. So the extent to which this sense of competence is going to play into your ability to act is a curious one. We note that some instances people might feel extremely confident about something but still not be motivated to act, and I wonder if you could comment on that specifically.
I think if I'm confident in something and not taking action, then I must not feel the need or drive or want to take action. If I think I'm good at, say, if I didn't like music, I'm good at it, but I don't like it, so I'm not going to do it. That's not the case, but that's an example.
Okay.
I got a quick question for her. Okay, so let me ask you this, because there's a lot of people out there, let's say that the validation doesn't come from externally. Let's say that, for example, that you were horrible at music, yet you loved music and you wanted to be good at it, but everybody in the society is telling you that you suck and you're not good at anything regarding music. What would compel you, maybe not you personally, but someone, to say that and continue doing that thing? Is it an internal source of validation? Is it a different source of validation in general? Is it just the love of doing it, or is it an identity?
I would say it would be for the love of doing it. Personally, if I was doing something, if everyone said you suck, you suck, you suck, and I still kept doing it, then it would just be whatever. I like what I'm doing. Whatever. I don't care what you think. That type of thing. I don't know if that answered the question.
The reason why I ask is simply because I'm curious to how feeling types specifically introverted feeling types make judgments on validation. Because I know for me, it's all about moving forward. It's a TE validation all the way. It's about goal accomplishment. And say Eric kind of slanted a little more toward INTP and achieving some kind of level of competence of the skill in itself, which is, indicative of anybody of an NTP preference. So I'm curious from a perspective of ESFP, if it's any different for you than a sense of just accomplishment or, mastery or whatever it may be. What is it that really compels you to do what you do, given the circumstance that even if everybody else said you were not good?
Right. Yeah, it is an internal. I don't know if it's exactly internal as much as I think we're really good at taking external things and making them our own, like taking external motivations and turning them into something that's very close to seeming like it's coming from the inside. So it might not actually be born there on the inside, but it feels like it to us. Like so if I'm doing music, it's like I don't know, I just love it. I like how I feel when I'm doing it. It gives me some type of release of some type of self-validation.
Well, I'd like to comment on that question as well, in the sense that I feel as though I've had that experience of being told by everybody around me that I ought to stop what I'm doing when I started uploading a bunch of YouTube videos. And I think that was born of my unique circumstances, and I think that ultimately I had a need to both assert the correctness of putting oneself out there even if one fails, and of eventually proving them wrong. And in fact, I have a goal that I intend to put a post. I mean, this is the kind of asshole I am, right? I intend to put a Facebook post up when I meet this goal. I told a bunch of people in my personal life a long time ago, by the end of this year, I will have at least 1,000 subscribers and at least 1 million views. And when I hit those numbers, I'm going to put a Facebook post up saying, I told this to all of you people in my personal life, and you all discouraged me. Suck it. I mean, I don't know. I feel a powerful urge to put that up there. Is that my motivation? I don't really know. I have a hard time understanding what my motivations are in general. But I know I continue to do. I think it probably has more to do with what Lorenz Walker says, which is I see, and it's kind of what Chad says as well, I see indications in the statistics that I'm getting better at what I'm doing, and it makes me want to proceed, that eventually I'll get really good at this.
I can tell you from my perspective that getting better is only a tool to fulfill the goal. For me, personally, like, I'm going to study something so I can get better to fulfill that goal versus the specific interest in that particular skill in itself. And so whatever the goal I set is going to be, that's everything that's required up to that point. When I lay out the plan is like, okay, you have to get this skill down, you have to get this skill down, and you have to get this skill down. But is it really pursuit of that individual skill that interests me? Probably not so much. It's more of that end goal. And so you mentioned something about, like, you kind of want to, show that, hey, all these people that supported you in your Facebook, or didn't support you in your Facebook, rather, all these particular people, you kind of want to show them and say, you know what, I did it. Look, I told you all. I can tell you I feel the same urge on many different levels as well. So I don't know how we can relate that to typologies per se, but there is an urge there, and it's not so much like, hey, I'm right, you're wrong, and you were. It's not, for me, it's not about proving I'm wrong. I think for me it's more of it comes from a place of, like, you can really do anything you really want to do, and regardless of what people say.
Right. Well, I think that's a noble way of looking at it. I think for me, it's probably hurt. It's like I feel hurt that these people discouraged me, people that I viewed as the closest people to me in my life, and that they didn't understand that but it's not really their fault. It's like to ask everybody to understand you entirely differently because you quit drinking is to overestimate everybody else's amount of attention they want to pay to you, for one thing, right? It's like, do I really need to go and reset all my perspectives on Eric now? That's going to be kind of a pain in the ass. I don't blame him for thinking that's kind of a pain in the ass. But, ultimately, that was the unique set of circumstances that happened to me. And I hope before I actually put that post up that I come to better terms with this feeling of hurt that I suspect is motivating it, and just end up deciding, you know what, it's probably not a good idea to rub your loved one's wrongness in their faces, right?
I would say, yeah, probably not. I guess you can create more tension, but that's kind of the life of the ENTP as it. Living in conflict, and I don't know if that's really a bad thing. I think that ENTPs grow from those experiences in some way or another. I don't know. I can't really.
You can't imagine how, but. Yeah, I feel you, dude. I totally feel you. I think we do too, but I think we grow eventually to stop doing it. Probably. I haven't gotten there yet.
There's a process. There's a process, and I get condemned all the time, one way or another way, and I realize that the thing that helps me get through it, like people say what I'm doing is wrong or what I'm doing is not ethically correct or whatever. And the way that I've always got through it is a lot of times that this is often a projection of what these people are already feeling. And they're projecting.
Well, if we're going to go into that topic, let's do a separate video on it. And I want to remind you, I was not. You know which side I took on the matter. I was not the condemner there. Okay, so let's do that topic.
I'm saying. I was saying they were doing that.
Let's do that topic. All right. So, I'm a full blast fucking capitalist, dude. Let me make that abundantly clear. I am all for making money. Dogs, if you don't shut the fuck up, I'm going to hit you with a stick. It's an idle threat, but who knows? Maybe they'll take it seriously.